Just in time for Sizzling Sprint Week. Now through Sunday, November 17th, get a free 49-inch LG 4K TV when you lease the LG G8X ThinQ Plus dual screen for just $15 per month. That's right, a free TV. Hurry in, this offer won't last long. Visit your local Sprint store now through November 17th and take advantage of this offer while supplies last. Phone $15 per month after $16.21 per month credit. Apply within 2 bills. Requires 18-month lease, new line activation, and approved credit. If you cancel early, remaining balance due. Excludes tax, TV, and screen. Require online registration. Ships from LG. Not available in store. Subject after $30 activation fee. Restrictions apply.
Gentlemen, welcome to Source Material, your weekly dose of some comic book goodness coming at you here from the Rattlechin Broadcasting Network. And this week, it is me, your host, Jesse Starcher, hanging out with the man, the myth, the legend, the patriarch of the Rattlechin Broadcasting Network. His name is Mark Rattlich. Mark Rattlich, are you ready to talk some Stephen King tonight?
I hear his endings need work.
His endings need work. Okay.
Yeah, that's the joke that came out of It Chapter 2, which is basically like Stephen King's a good writer, obviously. He's sold a lot of books. His books have been made into a lot of movies, but they kept making fun of the fact that he doesn't know how to do an ending.
Now, what we're talking about tonight as Stephen King's In. So real quick, I just want to know, number one, why are we doing this book and why'd you pick this one? I think that's the same question.
We're doing it because at the time of this recording, Dr. Sleep, which is the sequel to The Shining, will have come out, and we'll be reviewing it tomorrow on Damn You Hollywood. And then we'll be doing an on trial for The Shining.
Okay.
Or if you like The Shinning, do you want to get sued, lad?
That's a Simpsons reference. Even I get that one.
Yay!
Real quick before I forget, I want to post. I want to plug the Patreon. I did a extra for this, and we're talking Stephen King. So Stephen King wrote a essay, I guess you would call it, or a long form letter, whatever. Front cover, inside the front cover and on the back cover of Batman 400 back in 1986.
Wow.
And it was titled Why I Chose Batman, which is a fun read. I just basically read it from the comic. I wish Mark Rattlich would have been able to add some voices, but, he was busy that night. And Batman. But no, it's actually very interesting. So if anybody wants to check out the Patreon, $1 a month, can't beat that. Some extra content there. And it's fun to listen to how Stephen King compares Batman to Superman and why he chose Batman. Anyway, Stephen King's In, talking about comics, you chose In. Was that just because it was the most recent, Stephen King comic?
I chose N because it was a Stephen King comic. There aren't there's not a lot that I could find.
You're probably diving into Dark Tower because I saw a bunch of those, and really that's not what this is. That's...
Well, yeah, I saw a bunch of Dark Tower, and we've already done the Dark Tower. I don't want to retread over that. I wanted to find something new and interesting. I looked for something having to do with The Shining or Dr. Sleep. I couldn't find anything, but I saw this, and I thought, well, this came highly recommended from the places that I was searching in, so I figured we're probably never going to have a reason to tackle it again, so why not do it? And it turned out it was a pretty good pick.
Yeah. So creative team here. This was obviously published by Marvel. Came out March 3rd, 2010. The creative team's script was by Mark Guggenheim, obviously a story written by Stephen King. The art and cover on the inside is by Alex Maleev, who he's a pretty popular artist. He did, it says he first teamed with Bendis on Todd McFarlane's Sam and Twitch in 2000-2001. And you could probably catch him doing some other stuff here recently too. And then lettering Chris Eliopoulos. So a real quick, Mark, I don't know if you looked at the history at all about this comic, but the plan for this comic originally was in, I think 2000, I want to say it was 2009. They were going to, 2008, July 28th, 2008. This was going to be what they call, it was like a mobisode, okay? You ever heard of that term? Mobisode?
Not mobisode, but I did read that this was supposed to be some sort of animated comic.
Yeah, it was going to be released as a mobile phone episode of this story. Animation and production by Motion Graphics Studio Motherland, Inc. Wow, it says presented in a cutout animation format, complete with comic book style graphics, an original score, sound effects, and a full cast of voiceovers that includes actor Ben Shankman. And then the series is available on DVD as part of a special collector's edition of Just After Sunset. I have no idea what the hell that is. Either way, yeah, so CBS comes up with this idea that they're going to do what they call mobisodes, which are mobile phone episodes for this treatment, because this was originally, I think, a script for a movie, or at least a short something or other. It was a short story. They wanted to adapt it somehow. Then they decided in 2010 to release it as a comic. And here is what we have in front of us. So real quick, Mark, I will go down through and read our synopsis. John Bonsaint is a psychologist who has recently taken on a peculiar patient by the name of N. During his sessions, John discovers that N is fully aware that he is afflicted with insomnia, OCD, and OCPD, and understands there must be a root cause. And N believes his problems began almost a year prior when he visited Ackerman's field and saw the stones. As a photographer, N found the field by accident. The field had 7 large stones in the center, and he was drawn to them. But when he sees that the view through his camera reveals one more stone than there is, he tries to affirm what is real and what is not. Unable to comprehend what is happening, he leaves, but not before looking back and seeing a large, swirling smoke-like entity in the center of the stones. And thus, N's obsession with trying to keep the entity named Cthulhu and others like it in the stone circle began. N is convinced that in order to stop Cthulhu, he must do symbolic acts, placing a certain number of objects in a certain pattern, counting things, but his efforts seem to be in vain, and the dread of Cthulhu entering our plane of existence only seems to get stronger. In his last session with Dr. Bonsaint, N reveals things seem to get better during the winter solstice and at its worst point during the summer solstice. N also says that he is tired of having the responsibility of trying to keep Cthulhu out of our world, goes home, and kills himself. Dr. Bonsaint finds out about N's suicide and regrets not being able to help him. He also feels that he must validate N's reality and heads to Ackerman's field. Once there, he finds 8 stones. After finding a note N had left him with the key to the gate to the field, Dr. Bonsaint heads back to his car and reluctantly looks back to only see 7 stones. N's madness / responsibility lie on Dr. Bonsaint's shoulders now. Exhibiting symptoms much like N's, the OCD, the insomnia, the visions, Bonsaint begins to realize what is happening and is frightened by the fact the madness and Cthulhu seem impossible to stop. And on the 4th day of May, Dr. Bonsaint believes the best way to end it is to kill himself. John Bonsaint's effects end up in the hands of his sister Sheila, including the case of N. After finding the key to the gate and reading info left by her brother, Sheila finds Ackerman's field and also finds a similar fate, but not before writing a letter to an author, Dr. Charles Keene, about everything that has happened. Keene then publishes an article regarding all of the events surrounding Ackerman's field, including the suicide of his friends. But of course, he is driven by a compulsion to discover the truth, leading him down the same path of madness as his friends. However, this time, word of the story had gotten out, and when Dr. Keene appears at the stones for the last time, 10 others who have read the article await. Dr. Keene kills all 10, and then himself.
I really didn't have a lot of expectations going in. I kind of picked it as a standalone Stephen King story. Not that there were a tremendous amount of options in the comic book area, so I just like, okay, we'll do this, and I'll see what it is. And so I read it cold without knowing really what it was I was getting myself into. You know, this is the kind of conversation we tend to have about comics where we're like, you know, not everything's a superhero story, and the comic book, while it's seen as sort of a kiddie medium, can really be used to tell some interesting stories. Because really, what is a comic book but a novella with pictures? At least it can be. This one in particular was really creepy. It also reminded me, and I can't totally place where I was getting this from, but I remember, I want to say it was maybe something from when I used to play Dungeons and Dragons. There was a particular weapon or something or other. It's like, okay, hey, or maybe I got it from Monty Python. I don't remember which one anymore. It was something along the lines of, go in there, go in that cave or whatever. There's a thing in there, and a guy goes, and the guy goes in there, and he dies, and it's like, oh well, you don't understand, and it's like this weapon just wipes out like a series of people because the one guy tells the next guy, and then he dies, and the person, and it just goes on like that. Mm-hmm. I'm not explaining it well at all.
No, I think I've got the gist of it though, because it's just a continuous. Yeah, a chain of events or chain that continues to kill the next person, right?
Right. And it was, and that's why I think it was Monty Python that I'm remembering, because it was done in a really funny way. I just don't remember all the details now, but it was something along those lines where, one person tells the next person and that person dies, and the next person tells the next person and that person dies, and it wipes out an entire army one by one. But that's kind of what this was in a more serious way, where basically you have the unreliable narrator in N. You don't know if he's just nuts or if he's truly witnessing some sort of spiritual phenomenon. Either way, he gets to a point where he can no longer live with the stress of all of it, so he ends up killing himself. And then the doctor sort of poring over his notes and examining this case, and he was like, well, I should probably go there to see what this was all about, because surely this was just a disturbed person who gave in to their anxieties and their mental illness. But as it turns out, and he's going there to pursue, and I thought this was interesting. Can you become mentally ill?
Like it was a contagion or something.
Right. Mm-hmm. Can you, it's not a completely fictional thought. I don't think there's no legitimate way you can catch someone's crazy, but certainly you can be drawn into someone's drama and mental illness by being around them for an extended period of time, and it will have an effect on you.
Yeah, dude. And that's mentioned kind of in the comic, where when Sheila's writing the letter, she says, you've heard stories of, psychologists or doctors kind of, I guess, committing suicide. Like there was apparently, and I don't know, I assume what she's saying here is true. Again, it's a piece of fiction, but she says that there's a high rate of suicide amongst psychologists because...
You spend so much time in school learning all of these psychological theories and diagnosis, and all anyone wants is Xanax.
Yeah.
Like if you'd just gone to medical school or become a nurse practitioner so that you could distribute Xanax, everyone, you'd be happy, everyone else would be happy, you'd be a drug dealer. Mm-hmm. But no one would be unhappy, and you would feel useful and wanted.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do, Jesse. We need to open up a pain clinic or a medical marijuana place.
Oh, okay. I feel you on the second one there for sure.
Let me tell you.
Then we gotta like, partner with a burger joint or something right outside. something like that.
Let me tell you how we have the odd person that comes into the jail who's like, I'm prescribed medical marijuana, and I'd be like, good for you.
Like, why are they telling you this? Just because?
Because they halfway expect us to give them medical marijuana because it's prescribed. And as medical, we're supposed to take care of them and get them their prescription. Got it. It doesn't work that way, you fucking
idiot. We don't have that one in the old medicine cabinets.
No, you're not getting Xanax. You're not getting Klonopin. You're not getting medical marijuana, for Pete's fucking sake. You don't even get pain medicine outside of an aspirin if you're lucky.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I can't tell you that. That's like half the job right there, is arguing with people. Now, you can go to your doctor right now, and I've talked about this when I go into the cancer doctor. After recovering from my first bout of first series of chemo when I was in remission, I had some degree of like neuropathy and and pain in my legs, and they were like, "Oh, well, do you want us to prescribe you pain meds?" No, you fucking drug dealer.
We've got the prescription right here. The prescription pad is ready to go.
I'm anxious about possibly dying from cancer. Like, do you want something for that? No, pusher man. So you get these people who come in and they're just, and this goes back to, again, the comic. You get people who are on all kinds of meds, all kinds of sleep meds, Ambien, Trazodone for sleep, because that's currently our modality for treating most things. It's not necessarily cognitive behavioral therapy. It's not all these kinds of psychodynamic ways of dealing with things. It's treat it with medication.
Mm-hmm.
So you never really get to the root cause of what's causing you to have anxiety or what's causing you to have some other types of anxieties like obsessive compulsive disorder, which is what he talks about, with the counting and all of that.
Yeah, yeah.
But now the flip side of all of this is you don't know if that's just his own psychosis or if he's being affected by a demon from the netherrealm.
Yeah. I
think, Stephen King.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I like about this story. And by the way, I didn't know this existed until you suggested it. So I had no clue. But what I like about Stephen King and how he writes is, and there's other writers that do this, but it's that way of telling the story to make you understand that, okay, if that one thing is not really there, am I crazy or is there a problem with reality? Well, the last fucking thing I want to be in this world, Mark Radulich, is crazy. Okay, I do not want to be the guy that sees and it's so funny because did you see that tweet? I know I tagged you in it, but I was reading Excalibur from 1991, issue 45, and fucking Captain Britain, all right, is walking across Otherworld. Now, I know you read Excalibur at some point in your life, but I don't know if you remember what Otherworld is.
Excalibur was fun.
Well, Otherworld is where like all the other Captain Britons reside, okay? Mm-hmm. So he's walking across and the girl he's with, Linda, is explaining to him, blah, 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 this, blah, 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 that, nexus of reality, blah, blah, blah. And I kid you fucking not. He walks across in front of what looks to be like Stonehenge. And you know what I fucking did? I fucking counted the stones because of this fucking story. And there were 8, by the way. I don't want to be the guy that sees, the 8th stone there when everybody else sees 7, because everybody else is crazy, not me. And I think that is what is kind of subtly hit on here is that these are people who were not mad to begin with. They were not insane in any way. And then this one thing that they could not explain happens and they become obsessed with it. Now, there's been times in my life specifically one time in my life that I can remember doing something over and over and over, similar to what this guy has done. And I don't know if I shared this with you. I can't remember where I think I was telling somebody at work about it there a couple weeks back. But when I was young, like I'm talking, I don't know, 12, 13 years old, I would get some bad headaches, like some really bad headaches. And now this is just me being an idiot, now that I'm older and I can look back at it. But they would bother me so bad. Usually I'd get them on it would be like on a weekend or something, like usually Sunday. All of a sudden I get this headache and I would go down and just kind of like, oh man, well, then the headache would ease off. And you know what I would do in order to check to see if my head didn't hurt anymore? I shook it. So what would end up happening is I would continue to give myself headaches over and over and over because all of a sudden I'd start feeling better and I'd be like, I would shake my head like, I'm not talking just gently. I would shake it violently to see if my headache, and if my head didn't hurt, then I didn't have a headache. But then if I felt a little bit of a twinge, I'd shake my head again just to see how bad it was. And I did that for probably a year and a half to a year or to 2 years. And the thing is, Mark, that, the only reason I did that was because I just continued to check my reality over and over and over and completely based it off of something that was causing my insanity. I love how it's like, it's not completely explicit. It's not like the demon just comes out of the stone and starts doing things. We don't get that. It's not that. It's like he sees the demon's faces in the stones, but then all of a sudden, they're gone. Like it could be the light. It's your rational way of trying to explain away what happens. I love that Stephen King kind of gets that across just ever so gently to where you can identify where these guys are coming from. Now, the suicide stuff, first off, okay, Dr. Bonsaint, this is where the comedy of errors comes in, where he's just like, he puts everything in a box and tells somebody to burn it. It's like, dude, why don't you just burn it yourself? We'll call it a day. I definitely enjoyed the story. Do you have to deal with, you get some crazies in there in the jail. Mm-hmm. Do you ever get anybody in there that's like, completely like, this guy's fucking absolutely insane?
Yeah, every day.
Every day.
Every day. Dude, I put so many people on suicide watch today. It's ridiculous. The problem is you have like legit crazy where these people have some sort of wacky genetic or, biological chemical imbalance. And they've legitimately started having hallucinations and paranoid delusions and whatnot. They will never be able to function in society without help. So we get those people, and we get people who have mental illness. And it's kind of a chicken or the egg thing, but for the sake of this conversation, they're crazy because they've used a lot of drugs. Like if you shoot enough heroin or enough meth or enough heroin and meth, if you do like synthetic marijuana, I don't know if you know about that.
I've heard of synthetic marijuana. It can really screw some people up.
That's a big part of what we deal with is people that in Tampa it's called spice. It's also known as Tucci. It's like 1 part MDMA, 1 part marijuana, 1 part fentanyl, and 1 part like battery acid or some shit.
Fucking kidding me.
It's pretty wacky, and people do that, and then they come in and they're hostile and hallucinating, and just utterly agitated, off the wall, and and it's like, well, you can't reason with them; they're out of control at that point. Mm-hmm. And there's people who like, I do spice every day, all day for as long as I can, and they're like, okay, well, there's no saving these people.
Yeah,
at that point, you're just managing them till they die. And then like I said, you get people who shoot heroin, shoot meth, and you'll start hallucinating after a while if you do that for too long. You get people who pickle themselves with alcohol, and again, that's known to induce hallucinations, if you do it long enough. And you really have to make a habit out of it. Like, you have to be one of these people drinking cases of beer or bottles of alcohol every day, all day for like years. Mm-hmm. You're like, I don't want you to think like, a couple of years from now, Colton goes to a party, he has a couple of beers, and he's going to come home, but like, I'm hearing voices. Like, it doesn't work that way.
Gotta be sustained.
And then you have people where, again, chicken or the egg. It's like they had mental health issues to begin with, but then they also were using drugs and alcohol to excess. So, yeah, we deal with people who have active hallucinations, sometimes command hallucinations to self-harm. You have people with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Does anybody come in there and seem like they got their shit together? But, I mean, you can kind of tell.
It's jail. You're already starting off on the wrong foot.
Something's brought you here. It's not been a good thing.
This isn't like the army where it's like occasionally you get the one guy who's never had a problem in life and could have gone to college. Like, I want to serve my country. No one's doing that in jail. Mm-hmm. No one's like, I came to serve my time. Like, nope. They're all against their will. They've all got something going on. I mean, you get the people on the weekend who are just there for DUIs, but or the occasional the girlfriend called the cops on him and said she hit him, kind of a thing. But I mean, it's a very, very rare thing to find people who they've got nothing going on. They really are just they made a boo-boo. Mm-hmm. There's some, but most of the people we're dealing with are like lifelong drug and alcohol abusers with generational mental illness.
Okay. Well, let me swing it back here to the crux of this book and ask you, think of any time where you swear something happened and other people or others didn't believe you.
Up until maybe this year, I was still prone to night terrors.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, anxiety, nighttime anxiety, which sometimes bled into night terrors, and it was better obviously after I got married, and and there was always somebody in the room. But, I've had sleep apnea probably for a very, very long time. So it was hard for me to get to sleep at night because of nighttime anxiety. And then I couldn't stay asleep because I couldn't breathe and I would wake up. So between like heartburn, sleep apnea, night terrors, I had the worst time sleeping regularly. I was somewhat pacified by the fact that my wife was there, and the kids were there and everything. But I still would sometimes have like really bad nightmares. When I got on the CPAP machine, everyone likes to kind of goof around like, oh, Jigglypuff, guy fell asleep on podcast, haha. But that all changed once I actually got on the CPAP machine. A lot of the stuff went away. And just to give you an example, pre-CPAP, my wife and the kids slept at my in-laws, and I had to sleep with all the lights on in the house.
Wow.
Even with the doors locked and everything, I was deathly afraid. And you know me, I'm not really like a scared person. And like I said, I work with people who could very easily try to hurt me, and I have zero fear of that. I've been in mosh pits. I've been in really dangerous situations. I've had a gun pulled on me once. I've had knives pulled on me a few times. I've been in really shitty areas of various cities. I drunkenly walked into the projects of New Orleans once. That was a fun night. I've been in really crappy areas of New York City, and I've never really had problems with fear in those situations. I've just sort of dealt with it. But this is why I joke about some of the things that gave me nightmares as a kid and stayed with me as an adult, and those are the things that would pop into my head. And there were times where if I let it go long enough, I would let myself believe that, even sometimes with my wife in the room, that, it's the old horror motif of the person's, fine, they roll over and it's a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, things I've had moments like that. So like I said, she slept at her mom's house one night with the kids, and I had a whole routine I had to go through in order to get to sleep, and I still didn't sleep very much that night. They most recently slept at my in-laws again, and I watched a couple of episodes of Godfather of Harlem, my new favorite fictional character, Big Dick Buster. Your friend and mine.
Uh-huh.
I have been telling everybody about Godfather of Harlem, by the way. Anyway, I watched a few episodes of that. I put on something to listen to as I was falling asleep. But as soon as I hit that, within minutes of having the CPAP machine on, I am out cold.
Yeah.
And this time I went to sleep with all the lights off. Like, I had no problem turning off the lights, shutting down for the night, putting the CPAP on, putting on, I think it was Nikki Glazer stand up, and passing out like 2 or 3 minutes later. Mm-hmm. And there was no anxiety. But prior to May, and for a good part of my life, going all the way back to when I was a kid, I had it rough. And my mom also had a lot of like nighttime anxieties and night terrors and stuff like that. She had a rough time going to sleep. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's stuff that runs in my family.
I would assume that with the anxiety and stuff, you were obviously fearful of something.
All the stuff that bothered me as a kid would be real.
Okay. All right. So,
and I would see it in my head, and there were some nights that were better than others that I could compartmentalize and say, it's a fucking cartoon drawn by 2 shitty artists. It's fine. There are no hobbits and orcs in the bedroom.
Okay. All right. You haven't ever seen them. You're just worried that they're there. They're going to show up.
Well, like I said, it's in my head.
Uh-huh.
It's in my head, and I can't, and there are times where I can separate it and go, I'm being an idiot. I'm a 40-year-old man. I really ought to get over this stuff. And then there are other times I can't. There had been. This isn't really an issue anymore. But there are other times where, like I said, I would actually get up and leave the room sometimes. Like, I'm so, like, it's bothering me so much, and my brain won't rest. I was probably having racing thoughts at the time that I would get up and leave the room, and I would like go put TV on or go sit at the computer or something.
What is racing thoughts? I've heard that used before. What does that mean?
So imagine in your mind's like a movie, and it's just going. It's just rapid fire images and thoughts, and you can't stop it.
Mm-hmm. It just piles on, and there's a pile on the anxiety as well.
Yes.
Okay, I think I've been there before.
It really amps you up. Yep. It's one of the symptoms of bipolar disorder: racing thoughts, rapid mood swings, irritability, impulsivity. Those are the big 4. Those are the things that we look for with people when we diagnose bipolar disorder in the jail. I have definitely had times of manic-y behavior, racing thoughts. So what separates me from somebody who's disordered is I can actually function with all of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but it took some time. It took some time, and I've never been on any medication for it. I've never needed it. I've never been dysfunctional to the point where I would need it. It's definitely been an issue from at different points in my life.
Nothing as explicit as our buddy in here, where you've seen something and swore it was there, and other people were saying,
no,
it's all in your head.
I've never had any hallucinations with an auditory attack. Actually, that's not true. I've definitely felt like I've definitely had like tactile like hallucinations where I felt like something was crawling on me to this day.
Oh, okay.
There are occasionally I feel like there's bugs on me, and I absolutely think that's more of like we had an ant problem in the house, and there were definitely times where bugs were crawling on me, and I was like, oh fuck, and I gotta like get an ant off me.
Oh yeah.
And so I think it's more along the lines of, you know, it's like when it happens once, you think it's going to happen all the time. You never, like, that feeling just never goes away. Mm-hmm. So whether that can be described as a true tactile hallucination, you know, I don't know. For the sake of conversation, let's say it has, but again, it isn't like I'm at work one day and I was like, I can't do my job. I feel like there's bugs crawling all over me. It's not that bad. It's more of like I'll feel like a tickle on my skin and be like, oh, bugs, ants, or something, and be like, nope, there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The worst is like when you're in bed.
Oh
you're
yeah,
sleeping,
you can't see anything. You swear it's a spider. That's me. I'm like, that's a damn spider. There's a spider in this bed.
But there's sometimes where it's happened where we've actually had, like, look, Florida, like, you get palmetto bugs. There's just, you know, the exterminators will all tell you, we can do something about the ants, we can do something about the spiders. It's fucking Florida. Bugs are getting in this house though.
Just be ready.
Just fucking deal with it.
Yep.
And so we've had the occasion where I've actually like woken up and I felt something crawling on me, and I went and like swatted at it, and I got something. Like there was a bug on me, and I'm like, ah, yeah. The whole rest of the night, bugs are crawling all over me all the time.
Fears confirmed. I want to real quick, just to kind of go off the question I had for you. I want to tell you what ruined my Saturday night. And if you know me and Mark, this is a story about our kids. So Caleb has had issues in the past. I know we've had run-ins where this boy will swear up and down something happened, or something was somewhere, or somebody said something, and it didn't happen. Now, in the horror movies, in Stephen King books, the adults will always say something along the lines of, you know, you're just making it up, or it's in every horror movie. It's in your head. You're making it up. You're wrong, whatever. So Saturday night, we have an incident where Colton had gotten some like laser tag guns for his birthday. They were on the floor in Caleb's room. Now, Mindy walks into the room and says, boys, you need to pick this gun up off the floor. Who wants to pick this gun up off the floor, because it's going to get stepped on and broke? None of the boys move for some reason, because they're obviously not too concerned about cleaning up their own room. So Mindy says, all right, well, you guys are grounded. I'm picking the gun up. You guys aren't able to play with these guns tomorrow.
Sure.
So, okay, that sets Caleb off. Caleb comes in, you know, he's like, Mom, it was not there in the middle of the floor. It was over there in the corner. Now, right then and there, I'm watching to see if maybe Mindy was mistaken. Maybe she just saw it on the floor and picked it up. Because it was on the floor, she got upset. But Mindy's like, no, it was in the middle of the floor. And we had a 20-minute argument about the placement of that gun, because Caleb swore. And I mean, he was absolutely convinced that gun was not in the middle of the floor. So we told him, we're like, dude, we're not going to lie to you. We're not going to tell you a lie. Okay. We don't want to get you in trouble, but you have to understand, you know, Mindy's like, I am not lying to you. So at that point, Mindy says, I swear to God. She's trying to get across to this boy that she is not lying to him. She says she swears to God. She swears on her mom's grave. And at that point, Caleb gets really upset, because he is absolutely convinced that we are lying to him. He believes in his heart of heart that gun was over there by the wall. And no matter how many times we tried to tell him, he wouldn't believe it. He starts crying, because I think at that point he starts to question reality. Like he starts to think like, holy shit, you know, I swear it wasn't there. Now, the only reason I bring this up is because if this is one instance where he would have done this, you know, okay, that's fine. Obviously, he's trying to, in our mind, maybe he's trying to just get away with it, or, you know, trying to justify why he shouldn't be punished. That's what I'm thinking he's trying to do. But we have had very similar conversations where it's almost like he was in an alternate reality. He was experiencing something completely different from what we did. And a lot of times I have to remind myself, okay, is it my memory that's going bad? Because at that point, I start questioning myself because he's so beholden to what happened and so beholden to what occurred that maybe I'm the crazy one. And after that argument that he, after that whole thing, I mean, I'm kidding you. I'm not kidding you, Mark. It ruined Saturday night. I went to bed it was fucking daylight savings time. I went to bed at 9:30, which was actually 8:30. Okay. I was planning on staying up and playing some video games or doing something with the rest of my night. I said, fuck it. No, this has done me in. I'm done for the day, and went to bed. But I almost asked Mindy, and I'm glad I didn't, because she would have fucking hit me upside the head. But I almost asked her, like, were you sure that it was in the middle of the floor? But she sat there. She swore to God. I mean, that's a big thing. We're Christians here. We're not going to swear to God unless it's the absolute fucking truth. And I didn't ask her, but Caleb was so convinced that it wasn't there. I was like, I don't know who to fucking believe. I really don't. So to tie that back into N, I sometimes wonder if Caleb actually experiences things. I think everybody's like that, though. They experience things and their reality is what they make it.
So I've been waiting for you to finish your story, because as soon as I knew where you were going with the story, I was like, I've never had this problem really with my kids. With my kids, it's more of, and I know this has to be a kid thing, because Bill Cosby talked about it with his kids, and when he used to do the brain damage bit.
Oh my gosh.
Bill Cosby himself.
I told Mindy, I said, we have a defective kid. Because Mindy asked me, she goes, she asked me, she saw how exhausted I was after I wasn't even arguing. It was Mindy that was doing the arguing. Her arguing with him exhausted me. And then when she came out and we sat down, as Caleb was in his room crying and upset about what had happened, I mean, she was like, I don't know what else to do. I said, we have a defective kid. That's really all there is to it. But go ahead. So, yeah, I've never really had, other than, pick that off the floor, and the kid does a circle around it, and was like, where? And at that point, you just want to punch him in the face. They step on it, kick it, and what are you talking about? When Bill Cosby sounds like, like you're calling a child and you sound like a tobacco auctioneer, like, come here. Put it down, like that. I've done that. Okay. I've been there. With my kids, like, I don't necessarily think it's like mental illness or anything. I just think I just think kids are naturally born with their head up their ass. and it's just a thing that they have to go through. It's part of the maturation process. They will blossom like flowers as their head sprouts from their ass. Mm-hmm. My wife, on the other hand. Okay. We have had conversations. Things have happened, and she will insist they happened one way. And I don't have a great memory, especially for detail. I mean, you know that for having done podcasts with me for a while. Like, I can remember some things, and other details will stay in my head longer than others. But like strict recall, like Robert Winfrey, Pat Mullen, detail recall. I envy those guys. I don't fucking have it. I fell on the back of my head as a child. That part of my brain is gone. And I think she either takes advantage of it, or we just happen to work really well, because she will say a thing happened and I know it happened a different way. But, a conversation we've had, a situation that we've had between us, either she's knowingly like, well, this motherfucker doesn't remember anything, so I can take an advantage of your ass. So I just need to double down and he'll wilt. And but you ever just know you're right about something, mm-hmm. and it's that one moment of clarity that you do have, that you like, no, I know I remember it this way, and I know why I remember it this way, but the person you're with is fucking convinced it was a different way, and you you're clearly hallucinating. There's no fucking way it happened that way. Yep. And I can't tell you, over 10 years of marriage, how many times it's happened with me and Melissa, to the point where I've started to question her sanity at times. Mm-hmm. Or I'm like, there's no fucking way. You're either lying or you're a nut job, because there's no way it happened like that. To kind of tie that back into the book a little bit, it's like... Oh, is that what we're still talking about? Yeah, I mean, well, I think there's ways to do that. I mean, it's because, again, these guys all are experiencing reality like they should, and then they start to question it, and it leads them down a very, obviously self-destructive path. the only reason you're getting past all that shit, Mark, is because you're just like, well, I'm right, she's wrong, and that's the end of that. Well, I don't want to argue anymore.
here's another tie-in to the book, which I think is interesting, is the connection between mental illness and suicide. Like the low-hanging fruit there is, oh, okay, he's talking about depression. No, I'm not. Many depressed people won't commit suicide. No, it's more of you have a skewed sense of the world, but you know the world is made up of purple and lime green colors. Now everybody else is telling you it's not, though.
Yeah.
It looks the way you and I perceive the world. And you're telling this person that, like, no, everything is either lime green or purple, and that's it. And I know that. You can't convince me otherwise. And you just go through a life of people, everyone around you saying you're wrong, and people eventually just feel like, I can't live in this world anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what I got out of this book was you can read it two ways. You can read it as it's the demon. It's the demon drove them all crazy. The demon did nefarious things to create this situation for whatever their ulterior motives were. Mm-hmm. Or you can read this as a collective mental illness phenomenon, where the perception of the world was A, but the world itself was B. And just over time, people being so incongruous with the world couldn't take it anymore and just said, fuck it, I'm out. If there's anything that's the beauty of Stephen King's writing, when it's not dumbed down by Hollywood,
yeah,
it is a lot of it is left to interpretation. And so, is it a witch? Is it witchcraft, or is it mental illness? And you don't know, and there's no definitive answer. It's sort of left up to your interpretation. That's what I get out of the things that I've been the things that I've either watched, like Stephen King movies based on Stephen King's writings, the things that I have knowledge of. I feel like that's a big theme of what he does, is he's asking you, the reader, to take your own personal experience to his writing and interpret it the way that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
Like, he's not saying it is definitively this way.
Yeah.
And that's a palpable fear. Realize that your entire perception of the world, the way you relate to the world, is wrong.
Yeah, and it's so
just
simple.
Fucking wrong.
It's so fucking simple, too. It's one number. He sees 7 and then he sees 8. And it's just because it's that one stone, and then things just spiral out of control for these people, where they're like, okay, now I've got to count everything and make sure it's there. I've got to touch it. I've got to make sure that it exists, because that one time that I swore something existed and it didn't has ruined my, what perception I have of reality is. And, I could imagine, I could easily see that being something for somebody, because, they believe, just like you said, the world worked one way, and then one day they found out that it didn't. And now that's too much for their brain to handle. It's just way too much for them to handle. And a series of events happens to where it just leads to a tragic ending. So this is a damn good conversation for a book that I thought we'd come on here and spend 10 minutes talking about and then just call it a day.
Back to Raw I go.
Yeah. Real quick before we close out, though, the art style of this book was pretty unique. I mean, what do you think of it? Do you have any complaints? Did you like it?
I thought I liked the art. Some of it was photorealistic, not the people, but like pictures of like letters and books and stuff like that. I thought it looked cool. I thought it lended itself well to the material. It wasn't, nobody was painting with their appendages like fucking Scott Keith.
Fuck you.
Hey, I cleaned that up nicely, okay? I didn't say my usual, he was painting with his dick.
Yes, you did. You did. Alex Maleev, he's a pretty good artist. I liked what he did here, so.
I like the painted style of comic book artistry.
Mm-hmm.
I think it elevates the medium. So it's one of the reasons. I mean, obviously Kingdom Come is like the apex of like the photorealistic comic book art, but it's also, it's also painted as opposed to whatever the standard method of colorization is. Mm-hmm. And again, I think it takes what is generally considered to be a juvenile medium and really elevates it to the point of adult art.
Let's say, I guess we'll go ahead and get into plugs. I don't really have much else to say about the book. Had a good time. What's going on the schedule?
All right, tomorrow is our review of Dr. Sleep. So on the Metal Hammer of Doom, we'll be reviewing Rumahoy, Time to Party, with our good friends Captain Yarface.
Yarface.
And then on Thursday, November 14th, we'll be doing an on trial for The Shining. No boxing or MMA coverage that weekend. I'm taking my wife on a date to go see Ford versus Ferrari, and then at night, I'm watching ye old Bare Knuckle Fighting Championships 9. Bare Knuckle, Jesse. You can check out our shows for Terminator The Burning Earth, which was apparently quite adult. I didn't realize we were that bad.
Oh, my goodness. I had to put a warning at the beginning of the gag reel.
I saw that on Twitter. I was like, was it that bad? Oh, I listened to the gag reel. Yeah, I know. The gag reel has my hand job joke in it. So I got it.
Roast beef vagina all day long.
Oh, yes. I like my vagina like I like my roast beef bloody. Speaking of bloody, we also reviewed Terminator Dark Feminism. # Get Woke, Go Broke.
Saw that. I saw you post that there.
It's fucking Terminator, the Dark Fate. I mean, it won the weekend, but apparently it's going to be like $100 million loser and probably be the death of the franchise.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah. Jesse got to pick the review for last week on the Metal Hammer of Doom. Got As I Lay Dying, Shaped by Fire. So give that a listen. And then no shows last Thursday. But we have lots of MMA coverage for you. We had the Bad Motherfucker Championship of the World we covered. We covered Crown Jewel, where, I called Cain Velasquez a glazed donut and a honey-baked ham. He's fat. That's what I'm trying to tell you people.
Oh, get Big Papa Pump on the phone.
And then we have coverage of Canelo versus Kovalev for the light heavyweight, one of the light heavyweight titles in boxing. And the Bad Motherfucker Championship of the World between Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz.
Ooh, sounds exciting.
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll throw the canned plugs in here at the end. Like I said, make sure to go check out the Patreon. $1 a month. That's all it is. You get access to a lot of extra content. There's some cutting room floor stuff on there. There are some commentaries. There are some fun extra stuff going along with this episode, specifically the letter that Stephen King wrote for Batman fans in the issue 400 of Batman. So you can check that out. Fun little read there. Other than that, I think that is it for Mark Radulich. I am Jesse Starcher. We will catch you next time. Have a great one. Bye-bye. Thank you all for joining us. Make sure to give that Radulich in Broadcasting Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts we have to offer. We are at home on Spreaker, but you can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and recently we have hit the air on Spotify. Find your favorite podcast platform and type in RADULICH to subscribe for some great content. If you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word. And as always, we appreciate any feedback and look forward to entertaining you again soon.
Crown Jewel, where I referred to Cain Velasquez as a honey-baked ham. He was glistening. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
All right, let's go.
7 years ago, John Bonsaint, during the summer solstice. Summer solstice. What the hell did I try to write there, Mark Radulich?
Yeah, it's either like Monty Python and the Holy Grail or D&D or both, but
kind of a similar premise.
Does the monster jangle pots and pans and run at the screen going boogie woogie woogie? You can't tell that I'm currently blinking at you.
Okay, all right.
There's another word for it. It's called chlamydia.
Very much. But imagine the STD being a like fucking black-eyed demon-looking monster.
Yeah, that's chlamydia. Sorry, there's a tag team on Raw called the East Hampton Polo Boys, who are about to get ass raped by the Viking Raiders.
Well, maybe ambience. Maybe that's what I'm looking for. I don't know.
You mean ambience?
Or ambience.
Ambience the drugs, sir.
Call the ambience. Vasquez has been knocked out again.
Oh, Jesse. I fancy your Appalachia. All right, take two.
Thank you, comment section. All right, go ahead.
I do not level malevolently. It's not a weapon.
You're not a malevolent leveler.
I am not a malevolent leveler. And she was just like, no, I don't see your halo. I only see your horns. And I'm like, well, I can't help it. You hate Jews.
Oh, shit. Well, that escalated.
All right, I got to go because we're going to go pick out our Christmas tree tomorrow.
Oh.
Just in time for Sizzling Sprint Week. Now through Sunday, November 17th, get a free 49-inch LG 4K TV when you lease the LG G8X ThinQ Plus dual screen for just $15 per month. That's right, a free TV. Hurry in, this offer won't last long. Visit your local Sprint store now through November 17th and take advantage of this offer while supplies last. Phone $15 per month after $16.21 per month credit. Apply within 2 bills. Requires 18-month lease, new line activation, and approved credit. If you cancel early, remaining balance due. Excludes tax, TV, and screen. Require online registration. Ships from LG. Not available in store. Subject after $30 activation fee. Restrictions apply.